favorite day of the week if you're a collegiate Overwatch fan here at NECC, but it's an even more special one today as it is time for us to crown our division champions across each division throughout the day today. And today, we're going to have the honor of focusing in on our Division 1 and Division 3 title matches. I'm, of course, Tiny Shiny, joined by 2 Tryhard Ray. We got some banger matchups ahead of us today, and I know that you're particularly excited about seeing these Division 3 teams take off.
Yeah, I'm very excited. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to give you guys a quick update as Division 2 actually did their grand finals yesterday. We were hoping to do that today, but they ended up doing it a day early as Illinois Wesleyan ended up taking the victory 4-1 over SNHU. So congratulations to them on winning the spring semester for Division 2. Now, for this, we will be, for our first matchup, doing Division 3 specifically, the West Central champions. We're going to be having Iowa State varsity going up against Alvernia University Gold, and this is their paths they've taken to get here. Alvernia have been absolutely perfect the whole way there. They were the number 1 seed coming out of West Central East, I will believe, and now they find themselves in the grand finals, only dropping a total of 2 maps this entire season.
Yeah, that's really crazy for Alvernia. It's actually only 1 map that they've ended up dropping, where as we look at the other side in Iowa State varsity, they were 5-2. They were the 5 seed coming into this. It's very rare that you see a 5 seed make it this far. Of course, they didn't have to play either of the 2 teams that they ended up losing to in their bracket and will face off against Alvernia University Gold for the first time in this season as they were in separate divisional brackets. So having that come to culmination within the playoffs, certainly something exciting to look out for. And I know we did have Alvernia University specifically on broadcast a little bit last week, and I was hearing some pretty strong things about how proactive this team can be and how they look like an overall well-rounded team that is heading into this. And you gotta go ahead and even favor Alvernia, not only because they have the higher seed, but just because they've been darn near perfect the entire season.
Yeah, 1 map of the whole season. There's nothing to sneeze at. So let's go ahead and get an overview of these teams' rosters for you guys. For Alvernia, we got Set, Optimal, Toad, Toggling, and Gutsy. And for the side of Iowa State, we got Poyo, Zinth, Spike, Yup, and Otter.
First of all, Yup is an incredible name, and I'm very excited to see what that actually ends up doing. I'm going to have a blast with this in particular, but I'm not too entirely familiar with Iowa State varsity's roster. I know it's kind of come up for the collegiate power rankings. Iowa State's name has been thrown around a couple times as of late, so they've had quite a weight towards their name and their accomplishments so far, and I think getting as far as they have in Division 3 is certainly a testament to that. But Alvernia themselves are not a team to be underestimated. A little bit more familiar with their type of playstyle. Set in particular, very solid when it comes to the Sojourn play, and Gusty, even as a main support, tends to lead this team, and especially taking these actions, not letting the team sit back at all, and ensuring that Alvernia has the best shot that they can for any given fight. And this is another thing, actually, Ray, that's quite different about our grand finals, is for the first time, we're not in best of 5s. We are doing best of 7s or first of 4s, as a better way to put it. These series are going to be long.
Yeah, so every team is going to have plenty of chances to make adjustments and try and get back in the series. As we can see, classic first control map for Overwatch, always Lijiang Tower. That's where we'll be starting off, as Iowa State did decide to ban Samoa. So, expect what we always expect on these maps, some semblance of a brawl composition, whether that be like Ramatra's or, still who, he should be dead, but, maybe some teams still favor the Malga.
Don't say it.
Or, we've seen a little bit of Orisa popping up too. So I think those are the main tanks we expect to see. Of course, you go to Gardens, there's always the opportunity to pull out more of those dive compositions, the Winston, the Doomfist, the Diva.
Yeah, I think Lijiang Tower as a whole is a map that, while we do tend to see the Brawl favored for most parts, you have a lot of room to kind of wiggle around. If you were a Wrecking Ball team, it's a great spot for you to go. Even some Winston D.Va dive specifically on Gardens, which it does appear that that's the mini-map we will be starting out on. Just getting a little bit of a sneak peek at the direction of this game, but when we want to look ahead to those teams, I want to see them kind of start out slow, feel out the others' comps, and then make those adjustments as needed. Even with perks being added recently into the game, if you need to make adjustments, it's so much better if you can do them earlier than later.
I think the one thing we've noticed too is perks to me have had a bigger effect on DPS and supports. What I mean by that is like the picks that you make for the DPS and supports can have a high impact and matter a lot more based on what you pick and what perks you pick. The tanks, I mean, you know, in a given meta, if a tank is just naturally super strong, you know, perks aren't going to take a, you know, Mauga at his peak, you know, a good perk for a Macho wasn't going to make him better than Mauga, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's with Division 3 too. I think that a lot of these teams are closer to a similar skill level that you can play your more of a comfort pits. But even looking at this out of the gate, you have to be favoring Iowa State's composition. Having a Wrecking Ball here with a Tracer and a Pharah dominance both on the ground and in the skies. It's going to be darn near impossible for this Junker Queen comp to nail people down, especially if Seth takes a dive before this fight even starts. Zinth denied the passage over the bridge despite Alvernia's 3 speed cooldowns. None of them can get safe passage to an actual fight.
Yeah, immediately as I saw this composition rolling out, Tiny, I can totally see the big turnaround coming from. I know they're only a 2-loss team, but you know they were the 5 seed. Playing a volatile composition like the Wrecking Ball, especially when you're not used to going up against it, can be an extremely challenging composition to play against.
Yeah, and it's really good that Alvernia, again, made these swaps early on. Optimal matching the Tracer, but not for very long. Pollo had them locked down just as soon as that Tracer peeked their head out. Toad being over on the D.Va, yeah, a little bit more ability, a little bit easier to help get your team closer towards this point, and that's important. Set being on this Cassidy, very diveable character, but has extreme damage output. 2 final blows go in the direction of the Cowboy and Alvernia. Despite losing Optimal early on in this little skirmish, have very much managed to pull this back into their favor after taking care of Spike. And even a pancake on Napoyo to close it out.
Wait, they got Diva Bomb already?
That's crazy. No, that was a mech. That was just a remech.
Oh, yeah, that remake is crazy. I do love the swap over the D.Va. I think one of the easier ways to help put pressure onto a Wrecking Ball is with the D.Vas. We already see them abandoning the D.Vas. We see the High Nuke coming out.
What is this?
Great
the speed
eco.
dude straight into the team and set. Ooh, yeah, they'll manage to squeak on out alive, but just barely. Kitsune Rush in response. Iowa State Varsity are sick of Alvernia holding them at their first choke. But with how mobile most of this team is, they've been able to skate out alive. And if you don't respect Set's sightlines, the least mobile player of them all, Synth is now paying the price for it. Re-engaging with Gusty's sound barrier. Iowa State a little bit late on the response, but oftentimes the better sound barrier here is the more optimal one. Toggly's health extremely low, no opportunity to pull out their own ultimate here. So suddenly, Alvernia University Gold, they're starting to struggle. Very little sustain, and Zinth taking full advantage of it.
You see the D.Va Bomb coming on, and the Pulse, it finds 2 Optimal!
Huge from Optimal, and we needed that Pulse Bomb for Alvernia Gold to come in. It was looking really bleak, considering there was no sustain left for this team. Spike now over to the D.Va, got demeched almost instantly from that fight. Alvernia University yet to relent control.
Alvernia, as soon as they made some good swaps, set over to the Cassidy, Toad over to the D.Va, it has been absolutely dominant. And they still have this orbital ray from toggling online. The only, you know, it seems like the only out for Iowa State right now is Zinth hitting a massive barrage.
But this is what we're seeing from Alvernia University, though. This barrage, yes, it is big, it helps, but this tempo has been pushed so quickly here. Toggling, it got little to no value just because of Zinth's ultimate there. Iowa State Varsity can now fully push over the bridge, but the problem is, you use a lot of your resources in that early fight, so having to get back to avoid this kind of cap scenario is more so forcing the points, and in that process, you lose Cuspia, you lose out on Pollo. Iowa State Varsity, you might get a little bit of percentage now, but that's exactly what Alvernia University Gold wanted you to have. They're the ones with the ultimates, they're the ones with the resources, and this Kitsune Rush means absolutely nothing to a team full steam ahead, courtesy of Gusty's Sound Barrier. Alvernia University on the back of Set, and some wonderful positioning decisions from Toad are looking clean to get this flip back over and force Iowa State Varsity to scramble for a touch that I don't even think they're going to get.
Yeah, I don't think they are either. The Pulse is not going to find anything. They are able to get the touch from the D.Va, but Otter is down, and Pollo is down. That is going to... Oh, they got a few more touches coming in.
Wow.
But Set absolutely going off on the Cassidy. That should be the first cap.
With only a D-Mech D.Va of Spike remaining, I will say Varsity's chances are looking bleak. Very impressive stuff so far out of Alvernia University Gold. These DPS players are popping off.
Yeah, and already we're seeing a nice chess game between these teams with obviously the Wrecking Ball coming out at first, getting the response to the D.Va, and then the counter response to a D.Va of their own. But now we're going to Night Market / Control Center next, which tends to lend itself a little bit better to the brawl compositions. So we're going to have to see if these teams still want to do that, because we did see initially Alvernia coming out on that Junker Queen composition, which would lend itself very well to Control Center.
It'll look better, but here's the thing. Junker Queen honestly feels like one of the weaker tanks right now in comparison, like a Ramotra or even a Malga. Unfortunately, though, we won't even be at that brawl point. We're over towards Market, which these D.Vas are still incredibly viable. I do think Iowa State Varsity need to make some switches. Zinth was getting chucked out of the sky by Set. Any chance they were able to get a shot off on the Cassidy. So the Sojourn Genji, a much more stable comp.
As we are going to see, yeah, the Pollo getting off the Tracer, so, I mean, maybe they don't feel super comfortable taking on Optimal in that duel, but already Set finds the opening headshot on his Zinth.
This guy doesn't miss. I just think I saw Set hit like 5 shots in a row, already 50% to the Deadeye, and it's been, what, 15 seconds? This is insane stuff to pull from a Cassidy, the hero recently buffed, Set taking full advantage of it.
Oh yeah, Cassidy absolutely looking amazing, and Set's taking full advantage of that recent buff, as you talked about. And I don't even know, like, middle of this next fight, you could be facing down a High Noon. I don't know if Iowa State's even going to be ready for it, Tiny. They're just trying to find a way around with this D.Va.
And you'd have to have some insane ult tracking to be ready for it. It does seem that Toad got a little bit aggressive, baited Iowa State forwards, and they weren't fully keeping track of Optimal poking in through the sideline. So you lose out on Pollo there, and you're kind of committed. Iowa State Varsity aren't in a great position to fall back and wait for their Genji to return. Spike taking a beating. Suzu had to be pulled just to help them get out of the corner, but even that doesn't matter. Optimal again with another final blow. The team-ups with their Lucio player and Gusty here have been great about joining down heroes. Yep, just another target on Optimal's hit list. This point still heavily favored Alvernia.
Alvernia, once again, just in control. They did lose Set in that fight, but not going to really matter, as your team is pretty much on every single checkmark at this point, ult-wise. So now we see Spike moving over to the Winston, which I don't think is necessarily a bad shout. It's going to help you get on top of, like Juno or, the Cassidy, but I still think the D.Va puts a lot of pressure on your Winston.
Yeah, it's a bit of change of pace. The bubble might help, but again, here's that Deadeye. You can't really anticipate it, but this is the important thing. Spike actually zoned out the entirety of the healing, denied Gusty's Sound Barrier from hitting. Beautiful play out of Spike. Whether it was intentional or not, they'll be picking up a triple kill, and Iowa State Varsity should be grabbing their first control on Night Market.
Big team fight win. It was, a pricier one with both of their support ultimates, but you did get Alvernia to commit their Sound Barrier and both their DPS ultimates. So fair trades across the board. Is, now coming in this next fight where Zinth and Pollo will have both of their ultimates, Tiny. No Sound Barrier, so they have to hope they get aggressive if you're Alvernia with this Orbital Ray and get an early pick off.
I mean, this Orbital Ray here is one of the best ults in the game right now. So if Toggling can get this timing down right, which it seems is going to go out early before Zinth pops the trigger. Look at this. They're completely zoned out. The D.Va full sending it at the Sojourn player. Nice healing out of Otter, keeping the DPS on their feet, but no! The scent off the map. Toad use those bursters to perfection. That's another flip over. Iowa State Varsity cannot afford to get staggered. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, with 90%, I think that might just be if that might have been the nail in the coffin.
Oh, Pollo.
Now they're looking for even more blood as they're going for the spawn room, Tiny.
I mean, you have to at this point. Pollo, a last-ditch effort, uses the Dragon Blade just for the dash reset, but even then, the touch shall not come through. Alvernia University Gold are off to a great start in their grand finals.
Looking very, very good in this Diva v Diva matchup, or Diva v Winston. Essentially, you know, if we go into any semblance of a mid-ground dive composition, feels like Alvernia is going to have the edge. So the big question for Iowa State going forward is, you know, do you want to take us, you know, to maybe a King's Row where you know it's going to be brawl and you feel like you might have an advantage in that, or maybe you take us to a full sail dive map, you know, you take us to a Dorado or a Watchpoint Gibraltar where you have to play Winston's and see if they can match you on that.
Yeah, but even then, Ray, beyond the composition piece, it just seems that Alvernia have such good ideas of how they control this pace, where they're setting up these pinches, and therefore kind of pulling Iowa State's varsity attention in like 5 different directions, and it's genuinely a great strat. You can really start to see why Alvernia University Gold has only dropped a single map throughout their entire season, and I think this first point of Lijiang Tower is very telling of how they know how to play as a team. It's in Division 3. It's all the more impressive.
If they don't put pressure on Set, this match is going to be over. We just seen, you know, when he has the open angles and open sight lines, they won't miss. So you got to find a way to put pressure on them. And with Set being able to just freely fire like that, it allows Optimal to just farm your back line so that you're having to worry about, you know, this Cassidy who just keeps nailing these headshots from distance. But while we're trying to deal with that, we got Optimal who's in our back line just farming our supports.
Exactly. It's right. There's too many points of star power that Iowa State varsity are like, okay, do we focus on this Cassidy of Set? Do we focus on the Tracer? And it even forced Pollo to go more to that Genji instead of the Tracer. Cassidy does such a good job at shutting down these dive heroes, and I can tell you from experience, it's not very fun to be playing a Tracer against a Cassidy that is that accurate and still have to 1v1 another Tracer who is a Lucio and Gusty to continue that support line. So again, I think going to a map where you're not as vulnerable to these flank angles and can kind of narrow your focus down through different choke points is going to be beneficial. So this is the one time I will advertise a King's Row or maybe something kind of along those lines will be a little bit better for somebody like Iowa State varsity, but I do believe they have gone for an escort selection if I'm not mistaken here.
Yeah, so we do know that the ban coming in from Alvernia was they decided to ban Rialto.
Okay.
And it looks like the map they have decided, baby, is Gibby. We're going to Watchpoint Gibraltar, baby.
This is interesting to me because, you know, we got to see that last round where, you know, you come out on the ball, and I think the ball was a great idea. That first fight out of Iowa State varsity, perfection. You were able to disrupt the dive setup. There was no way for Alvernia University to get their players in positions to actually collapse the way they wanted to. But Watchpoint Gibraltar, this is a much different ball game. Quite literally, and I don't think you should play a wrecking ball on this point. Spike did look good on the little bit of the Winston that we did see here, but this isn't necessarily a setback for Alvernia in the slightest. In fact, I think this just fits their playstyle even more.
Only time will tell as we will be getting you guys straight into Watchpoint Gibraltar. Alvernia taking a nice and easy 1-0 first point map victory on Lijiang Tower, mainly playing Diva compositions, which can translate to a map like this, but this is definitely Winston territory. So we'll have to see, do they match the Winston or do they feel more comfortable just playing the Diva even on a map like Watchpoint Gibraltar?
Yeah, either one I think would be okay, especially with Toad showing a good understanding of whether it's time to commit on a squishy player or whether I need to back up and go to my team. For now, we'll be teasing that Winston. Instead, we're going to focus a little bit more on Iowa State's composition. I do like that Pollo is on the Tracer. You're kind of expecting either Optimal or Set to pull that out just based on how Lijiang Tower went, and it's much easier to contest that payload with that specific hero, but otherwise, a pretty standard defensive setup for Watchpoint Gibraltar.
Yeah, Zenith going over to the Ash, who was on the Sojourn previously, but on a map like this with long sight lines and the dynamite damage can be absolutely devastating to some of these compositions. Like, you know, being able to set up a good dive and dynamite onto the supports, your support line could just be gone in an instant if you set that up properly.
It's gonna be.
No, he's
oh,
dead.
Please tell
Stop
me
it.
we're not doing this.
He's dead.
No,
Stop
no,
it.
no, no, no. What are we doing? Alvernia University Gold. Ray, dare I say that I don't hate this. First of all, I love Venture. This is my favorite hero. Set, you are now my favorite player in this lobby just because you picked this little rock buncher here. You're forcing the payload, right? Iowa State Varsity, you don't want to go anywhere near that composition. The only reason they got Set is because he got a little over aggressive. He's got to win up and he's like, hey, I'm on Venture. You can't get me. You got this payload already under the underpass, essentially for free.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. It's Malga on Gibraltar. What are we doing, folks?
I mean, the concept sucks, but you gotta admire the creativity of this team, and it honestly can work. I would say Varsity, they can. Okay, Set's being a little silly. I don't really want to count that, to be fair.
I mean, it's happened twice, so I mean, let's hope it's not
okay,
a pattern.
there we go. There we go.
Look at that. So much damage thrown on a Toad. It's like, I don't know. I'm not feeling the Malga because so many of these players are just going to be holding different angles on the high ground. Like, you can't even put pressure on anyone. Yeah, we see Toad immediately now going over to the Diva.
Yeah, that makes a little bit more sense. I admire the creativity in Alvernia University Gold, giving us something we haven't seen so far. Now, Set still sticking on this venture, despite having 2 deaths in under a minute there. We'll see if third time's the charm here. Zinth already almost up to a Bob, has really been chucking these bullets into the venture player and forcing the space of Alvernia since they haven't any contest. But it's kind of making a little bit more concerned. Diva can bring down a Winston if you're not careful, committing both the Bob and the Blizzard here, actually, to try to control some of this space. And it's Set who comes up victorious. That's 3 kills out of the clobber. That's a rarity. This is why we have Set on the venture. Memes gone.
Wow, who's ever seen the drill run 3K from the venture? Set was hearing us. Set's like, okay, time to stop being silly. Time to be a little bit more serious, and absolutely cleans up. And if you're Alvernia, yes, you use your Blizzard and your Diva mech, but you were able to keep both your support ultimates and your tectonic shock.
Yeah, this is a really good spot for Alvernia to be in. That Blizzard perfectly plays out of ultimate. I think it actually snared 3 players there, and that Set was able to clean up with the melee. This is kind of the opportunity, though, you would think for Iowa State to get back in it. The nano boost onto Spike, but you're in a small room with the Venture. You're just kind of asking to get punished. No Seneca here, not a lot of healing to go forwards, and I mean, Zinth is getting hunted down. Look at the pressure that Set completely denies the space. This is what Venture is so good at. Iowa State Varsity just got divided and conquered.
I'm gonna be honest, Tiny. I did not know you could get yourself all the way up on top of the ship with that venture drill. Like, oh, yeah, that's crazy amount of vertical distance you can get. Like I can't believe I've never even seen that before. Like, that's just blowing my mind right now.
You can really do gymnastics with this character. Like, it's so much fun. You love to see see a new approach, and even Set now, I believe, set up in that right room that Toad's kind of looking in the direction of, looking for a tectonic shock. A little bit difficult, though, if the rest of your team is getting beaten up by Spike, popped the Primal Rage, and attempting to break up some space, while Yup now over on the Zenyatta, attempting to survive the wrath of Set. 32 HP, and beautiful Suzu timing, toggling, keeping them alive, and taking out Spike as a result. Pulse Bomb goes eating everything has gone wrong for Iowa State Varsity, or perhaps it's just Alvernia University Gold that are playing so darn perfectly that even these plays that should be helping them getting back a momentum, it's only growing the snowball, pushing it further down the mountain.
Yes, they're putting pressure onto the Ash, going back to the spawn room. Blizzard now out, and they get
this might be
Spike.
it.
This is looking bad.
It's really just this Bob last ditch effort. I mean, Zinth has done the best that they possibly could, given the tempo, the pace that Alvernia have been wanting to set. The Bob will do it, and a couple volleys from Yum as well. Stability is there, but look at that time take. Look at the payload distance, Ray. That was an insurmountable pace.
Yeah, Yup. Switching over to the Zen, coming through with the damage. Absolutely looking fantastic, and now you're going to have that Transcendence for the extra sustain this fight, and you have the Nano to be able to give someone. As Alvernia threw in almost everything they had, the only thing they'll have now is a Kitsune Rush.
Yeah, for Avarnia, it's kind of okay here. You know, you can kind of take your time, 3 minutes on the clock to go, and you have options. The biggest concern is how are you getting to this high ground? It's really going to be set, or even trying to walk optimal up the stairs. You burn through the May wall, and Poyo is taking a page out of Set's playbook. That's a little bit more concerning, though. Yep. I'm assuming got booped off the high ground and taken out by a stray icicle there, and Poyo completely zoned out, having to deal with Optimal. Not your favorite thing to do as a Venture player, knowing this payload has to be contested, and that's one thing this Underground hero can do very well. Set coming out of the ground, but instead it's Poyo who has the elimination out of the burrow. But look how the amount of pressure that Toad has been able to put on the spawns. It's again, that extra damage that you're not expecting from the support line has actually saved Iowa State Varsity for seemingly a second time.
Oh, great sleep, because it looked like Seneca did go down anyway, but it doesn't even matter. Cleanup on aisle 3 for Iowa State as they hold off Alvernia once again. 2 minutes on the clock. Alvernia, however, their rotation of ultimates is coming up online where they're going to have a big advantage. Remech, Tectonic Shock, Sound Barrier, possibly a Blizzard. This could spell bad news for Iowa State. Hopefully Zenith can, make some use out of this bomb.
I mean, Alvernia are so good at taking the initiative, and Set proving this to be no different. Although the Tectonic Shock doesn't really find the value and damage that you're looking for. Although Set did identify that, I believe it's Yup out there all alone in the backline, expecting them to be on the high ground, but little did you know this pesky Zenyatta is going on the low, so this amount of time that Yup is just burning for the team, close to a Transcendence, and now allows Poyo to restabilize with their own ultimate. Doesn't come up with all of that much, but again, Yup still alive, takes out Gusty. This Zenyatta is doing so much. It's only now that Set deals with him, but it's too little too late. Alvernia have no supports.
Yeah, the only thing you can say is they've been holding on to some of these key ultimates. The Blizzard is going to be the big one. We saw them wrap up 2 pretty significant fights with the Blizzard alone, so can they do it again with Optimal? And they can even combine and throw in the Kitsune Rush into the fight. So, but Iowa State has a lot of tools to work with as well. They got 4 of their ults, so let's see how this goes.
Yeah, Iowa State, they've done a great job at siphoning off their resources for when it's needed, and that time is now. 3 shiny buttons pressed at the same frame, and the key one is Optimal shiny button is eaten up like a nice little dessert. Spike says thank you for that one, and Iowa State Varsity are perfectly fine with this. The big win condition of that Blizzard completely negated Alvernia University Gold, despite how quickly they move through these couple points. Not only are they going to be staggered here, but you're on final fight territory.
Yeah,
Oh no! This is so bad!
Oh, it is so bad. It's funny that you mentioned desserts because, Blizzard Dairy Queen. It's one of my favorite lines there. As we see Spike getting ultra aggressive, has the remech if needed, but they find Poyo.
That's what you want to do, and sometimes just getting out with the burrow, there's that slight bit of vulnerability, but if there's anyone that can bail them out of danger, it's Yup. They've done it this whole point. Buys a space for Spike to get in. You can see these Discord assists come on through, assisting these diving characters. Toggling has to essentially sit on top of the Zenyatta in order to finally deal with that pesky monk, and even then, where's the support? What other chances do Alvernia have left? It's looking grim, given Spike is still in this mech, still has full health to go. Self-destruct, just a bit of a victory dance here for Iowa State Varsity. It was a rough start towards this attack, but they really managed to find their footing on point 3 despite all of the challenges.
It's still a pretty good position if you're Alvernia because you essentially got it to the very end. You just didn't cap it all the way, which on a point like Gibraltar is still very, very good. This is a very hard map to cap all 3 points on. So it's, still a great position to be in, as all you really got to do, which this map can be known for holding on first and second point. So Iowa State's going to have to really come with it on this attack.
Yeah, and this is the hard part. Like, you kind of got your footing there at the end, but now you got to figure out a way to snowball in a similar manner that Alvernia just did, and that's not going to be an easy task to do so. Of course, the element of surprise, I think, really did throw Iowa State off guard. 9 times out of 10, you're expecting a Winston or Diva dive sort of mirror. That is not at all what ended up happening there. The Venture, a pick out of left field, but one that certainly ended up working for both teams at the end, and I'm very interested to see what Iowa State wanted to do on this map, because it was their pick after all.
As my guess is they definitely wanted to play Winston, but it felt like Toad was just doing such a good job on the Diva, putting pressure onto them and their team, with the because they're playing the May Venture too, which just as soon as the Winston dives in, if your Venture and May are there, just freezing him, slowing him down, putting all that damage down, not much you can do to get out. So, and the Diva and the Venture, the May and the Venture are a little bit, not as squishy, and they have tools to kind of avoid the dive with the ice block and the drill to get out of there. And the supports are very not diveable either with the Lucio and the Kiri, so the Winston just hasn't felt like it was getting as much value as you would have hoped.
Yeah, I would say went into this expecting, hey, surely they'll be reasonable, like conventional Overwatch. Alvernia said, no. Try May Mauga Venture, and even then, it doesn't seem that you're ready for set. Waiting on that high ground, kind of daring a player to try and contest him up there. Synth caught off by the element of surprise, and Alvernia University Gold seem to be having a strong start towards their defense.
As Set finds another, and they're just going to be sending everyone back to the spawn room. As Seneca, they're looking for him, but it looks like I think they went back. Oh, they're still there. He's been found.
You think back to map 1 too, where one of these main issues was where Alvernia are so good at spreading themselves out, controlling different amount of space, and not getting punished for it. That's exactly what's happening here. Synth going over to the Echo just for more chances at moving through the sky, applying this burst damage, and hopefully not just getting jump scared by a Venture hitting corner. Like, you can see how paranoid they are, peeking into that room. It's like, oh no, is Set around the corner again? That's kind of the fear. But the Echo is really good at burning down the Diva. Toad completely forced away just from a couple sticky bombs and a focusing beam.
Well, no hit scans really on the side of Alvernia either. You have the icicles you have to deal with. Basically you have May icicles and a Diva that you have to deal with, but it's not like you have to deal with a Sojourner or a Cassie or an Ashe shooting at you.
Yeah, and there's not a ton of pressure on to Synth, but at the same time here, how do you move forward? Optimal's May is so good, specifically in this underpass. Between the walls, the freeze beam is on a closer range, and there isn't really anything that Iowa State Varsity can do about it. The Kitsune rush kind of going out. Optimal does fall just shy of the blizzards here, so perhaps an opportunity for Iowa State. Spike does have to throw this self-destruct in order to get back into the mech, but look how quickly that was burned down. Seneca panic nanoed onto the Diva, knowing how important this fight is to try to maintain this space, but even then, with how good of an opportunity it was, Zinth has no health, and Set will manage to escape with a sliver of HP. Even though Iowa State started this fight off right, it's slowly starting to slip away from their fingers. Optimal is now back in the fray. It can throw out the blizzard at any point, and the only thing Alvernia have had to do is throw out a Kitsune rush.
And Whip Wop, would you look at the clock, Tiny, a minute and a half left for them to be able to make any kind of change. Like, it just felt like time just flew by. That fight took so much, off of the clock. So if you're Alvernia, you gotta be feeling good. All you've ever used so far is the Kitsune rush as well. You got Iowa State to use the Nano and the Tectonic Shock in that fight. So you are in such a great place to be Alvernia.
It was only a minute to defend too. What can Iowa State Varsity do to break through this Alvernia team? Again, it's Set. You have to punish this player. That's step number 1, and it happens before the sound barrier goes out. Gusty was doing their best to keep the Venture on their feet. That chance goes awry. So now it's up to Optimal's Blizzard, and it seems that everyone from Iowa State Varsity is far out of its ranges. Gusty ends up falling, and despite the ultimate commitment here, it seems that the efficiency from the attackers, it's much better. Finally throws Alvernia off of their own rhythm, and I'll have to see if they can deny when final contest.
And the question is, do they contest, which they are.
Yep.
There's the Tectonic Shock.
Set into the backline. Burrow is forced out. Spike having to fully commit onto the Venture to try to keep them alive, and yep, in a rather dangerous position. I believe that was the sticky bombs that ended up taking them out super low here, and this is where it starts to get worrying. Iowa State Varsity, you almost had it, and it's yet again about to slip away. Alvernia have all of the eliminations in their favor, only missing out on Gusty, and that's not something to sweat. It's now only up to Spike, and I believe Poyo, who's been spouted out into the backline. The drill dash, though, completely denies the touch altogether. Set winning Alvernia University Gold, their second map.
Wow, what a play from Set at the very end to not even allow the touch, because Toad could have stalled. I'm losing my mind right now. Spike could have touched for so long because they had the remech as well. So that drill dash not allowing The touch from Spike, huge.
I'm inspired. I'm inspired by Set and this Venture gameplay. Like,
Makes me want to just go get some rocks outside and start munching, huh?
Real though. I want to show off my rock collection. I do actually have one of those, by the way. I mean, it's meant to be. Getting 3 kills with the melee clobber is kind of ridiculous, and I mean, this was something that Alvernia University Gold, you just win because you're unpredictable. Iowa State Varsity didn't know how to figure out how to counter it until it was at third point, and yup, Poyo really gave this team a chance at stabilization there, but unfortunately, it kind of got stuffed in the attack. Once again, Set was just set up on these incredible angles. Toad, we never really saw overcommit once, and that's one of the things that you have to look out for on Divas. Sometimes you just feel like Thanos, and you kind of just get in there. Alvernia University Gold looks solid all the way around the block, and even though Iowa State had their moments, it's not close enough to get Alvernia off the rhythm.
Alvernia taking a swift 2-0 lead as they dominate Watchpoint Gibraltar probably more than they did Lijiang Tower. So the question for Iowa State is, what changes do you make going forward? Well, they're going to have a quick break to figure that out, so we're going to take a quick break. Grab a drink, grab a snack, because you aren't going to want to miss the rest of this match right after this.
Division 3 Overwatch finals have been a one-sided affair so far. Alvernia University Gold leads 2-0 and one map away from championship point here as we look ahead to map 3. What can we see from Iowa State Varsity? They've given us some signs of hope, some beams of shining light, but every time that there's something new to come off, it's like They're just flipping off the light switch, and I think that Esperança will be the best shot going on ahead. It was a push selection, and Alvernia, Queen Street ban.
It feels like that band, New Queen Street, Alvernia is like, no, 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 we're not playing Wrecking Ball this map. No, no, no. We're going to not even put that out in the air as it's the New Queen Street, very good for its Wrecking Ball. So Esperança, more classic. Wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see Diva, but Winston also very good. Also seen Ramatra heavily, used on this map as well. So those are the three main tanks I think we'll see, but based on how this series is going, it's been a Diva v Diva matchup, and Alvernia's been dominating. So that's why I'm like, at this point, I'm like, Iowa State, I'd try something new. I'd whip out the Ramatra and see if you can, force them into a brawl and beat them that way.
Yeah, you're kind of grasping at straws now if you're Iowa State, and it was a good idea, to start with like that Wrecking Ball, the Pharah. It worked for one fight, but Alvernia have proven that quick adjustments isn't something that they're unfamiliar with, both in terms of composition and play style. Again, I think this does come back to the core issue of especially setting up on these flanks, these off angles, and going completely unchecked the vast majority of these fights.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, but I do think also if you did go the Ramatra on a map like this, I think the Ramatra could do a great job of putting a lot of pressure onto the Diva. Diva can't eat any fists, so that Nemesis form will work pretty well for you. And then again, you're just a lot more tankier. It's hard for Diva to take you down in that form.
Yeah, Iowa State will be subbing Otter back in for this map, who I believe was playing the Kiriko, or the Juno, actually. It was a Juno Lucio for Alvernia, and it was Iowa State had the Kiriko Lucio. There we go. It was Kiriko after all. So making that swap in, I'm assuming not an Ana player or a Brig player for that matter, so that's completely fine to make the substitutions. But since we are on a push map, speed, more often than not, is the name of the game, and does show that Iowa State recognize the importance of meeting Alvernia at this fast tempo they're setting.
West Central Division 3 Grand Finals, folks. Alvernia 2-0. Esperança is our destination for map number 3, as we are getting ready to see what compositions we are looking at. And no surprises here, folks. We are seeing a Diva v Diva matchup, and Set is going back to that all-dangerous Cassidy we saw back on Lijiang Tower.
Oof, I'm shaking in my boots over here. I don't think we spectated Set and saw them miss a shot. Very concerning, especially because the people that Set were shooting at, it wasn't necessarily a Diva, who's basically the size of the sun. You can basically just hit these squishies whenever it's needed, and it zones out a lot of these supports and damage heroes. So as we get to look ahead here towards Esperança, these bridges, these high grounds are going to be super important for both these teams to get set up on. Set up on. I just kind of occurred to me. I'm sorry, I'm on.
As we see already the spectating of Set looking for angles. Obviously, Spike doing a good job of trying to limit the amount of damage, and Zinth is the one who finds the opening pick.
That'll be Zinth actually first, and we saw a little bit of the Sojourn back on Night Market, so the fact that Zinth is already dealing with Optimal was a bit of a thorn in the side when they were on Tracer previously. That's a really good start. Set 2 actually ends up overstepping. You saw that Poyo had that little pinch angle set up. Even if the trade comes through there, Iowa State Varsity are looking to be in much better form for fight number 1 of Esperança than they have the entire series so far.
Yeah, and I think Spike's doing a good job of knowing how dangerous Set is on the Cassidy and making sure you use that defense matrix to limit what they're able to do. And it's allowing Zinth to find some angles. I mean, and just getting Optimal right off the rip was already great. Because as you talked about, the big problem is the combination of Set with the damage to be able to throw from a distance while Optimal's in your back line.
They're not necessarily out of the woods yet, though. I mean, Gusty and Zinth have kind of traded back and forth. It's only now that they actually dealt with Toad, and Toad was demech'd, I think, like 30 seconds ago or so. So, buying a lot of time, Alvernia managed to do.
Yeah, and Otter has built up to a Kitsune. I mean, basically the entirety of Iowa State has all of their ultimates online. Alvernia kind of in a similar spot, so we're going to see who is the one to get more aggressive with these ultimates to try and open things up. Feels like it's got to be Alvernia because you don't want Iowa State getting an early cap.
And you kind of got to be the ones to take the initiative, though. I mean, Iowa State, this getting a capture early here would be great. Snowball on push is nothing to scoff at. Toggling, though, having to respond with their own support ults. And Alvernia, so far, again, we said this before, where if you can have the later ultimate or even manage to hold on to a sound barrier until late, that is a much better situation to be in. The one thing that's going to come up to be a problem, though, is you don't have anything for Poyo or Zinth to pull out their ultimates. Nothing is going to stop this Dragon Blade or anything at all. The only thing that's kind of concerning is, Ray, I'm looking up at the top of my screen. That bot, Optimal, just stole it. The forward spawn's no longer even an option. Alvernia can get a reset.
Yeah, but, you know, you didn't get it further away enough to where it's going to matter. Yeah, especially with this blade coming in, cleaning up. That's going to be a first point capture for the side of Iowa State and a much needed start to Esperança in order to get back into the series.
It's actually going to be also not only have Iowa State gotten themselves to this checkpoint, but you're also forcing Optimal to swap for the first time in this series, matching Poyo on the Genji instead. It can be rather difficult to meet a Genji as a tracer, so this swap hopefully will give a little bit more poke range and allow Optimal to close that gap a little bit easier. It'll be Zin's turn, though, to take over that spotlight. Got the overclock perk, so extra damage that can do, but it only matters if you hit the shot. Thankfully, Yup is there to go ahead and cover for that. One elimination is secured. Optimal really not having too much luck so far on Esperança. Iowa State completely locking down these flankers that have caused them issues all series long.
And in the meantime, they're just continuing to get all this free distance. Tiny 110 meters and counting. Kitsune Rush now forcing back the players of Alvernia as the Diva Mech forces Poyo into a bad position and he goes down.
Yeah, it's one elimination, though, and especially the spawns right there, Alvernia should be able to stabilize unless something crazy goes. Iowa State are still going to commit, though. I mean, Yup sound barrier helps them weather the storm for a little bit. I can't say the health bars of Iowa State, though, are in a great spot, so you're going to opt to go ahead and back off, set there to help clean up these eliminations, and it's time to begin climbing the mountain, because a clean sweep might not be in the cards today.
I don't know, Tiny. I don't want to feel like an Avril, but it feels like that might be over. Like, that is so much distance to gain on this map off the rip like that. It's so hard. I mean, unless you're Runasapi, it's really hard to come back on a push map like this. So, we got to see what Alvernia can pull out. Optimal's going to have the blade and no sound barrier online for Yup. So, this is going to be an opportunity for them to get a lot of distance if they play their cards right.
Yeah, and the one reason I don't count Alvernia out is because they've massively snowballed in previous maps. It's shown that it can be done, and actually outlasting the Diva defense matrix there forces the sound barrier, and Alvernia full steam ahead, I guess, knowing Yup doesn't have a sound barrier to respond to Gusty, and they haven't really been able to nail down anybody. Otter's health really low, and eventually will be set to land the headshot, but at the cost of Toad barely hanging on for life, and Spike will make sure Diva is sent straight from her mech, and it's now all Zin's time back in the spotlight, and this time the overclock will go ahead and hit its mark. Iowa State varsity gonna get this robot turned around.
Yeah, I mean, feels like Toad was trying to do their best in applying pressure onto Otter, but they went so far that they put them out of position away from their healers, and they got absolutely demected. Then at that point, there's no point in pulling that optimal blade because you're going to need it, as now the forward spawns are going to be re-unlocked for the side of Alvernia.
Yeah, even if you just let this robot move back a little bit further, this is fine for Iowa State varsity. Zinth is perfectly postured on this high ground. Poyo has free access to the backline through that little room, that hallway you saw him looking through. It's Alvernia that have to manage to break through this checkpoint, and so far Optimal swinging at nothing but air. It was a good angle to get set on, but you have zero way to get back out, and Spike being out of mechs, perhaps there's more of a shot, but the Spike is living a lot longer than you would have to expect. Alvernia heavily committing in terms of ultimates. Everyone crowded a small room. Uh-oh, it's all good, but the Suzu perfectly timed Otter. Red set like a book, shut down the casting, denied the eliminations, and it'll be a single cooldown that not only manages to dodge one ult, but a second. Wow, beautiful play from Otter.
Huge opportunity blown for the side of Alvernia, but huge play coming out from Otter. Not only that, but they only used a Kitsune Rush and a Blade in that fight where Alvernia threw in so much. So this is looking like, I mean, at this point, I'm calling it, Tiny. I think this map is over. I think Iowa State wins this map.
Yeah, when there was 5 minutes on the clock, I'd say, hey, maybe there's a chance. There's now 3 of those, and we have seen, what, 20-ish meters gained? It's not looking good. Now, Alvernia would seriously have to win the next every single fight in a row to make it happen. And Iowa State Varsity, that is a very early sound barrier. I'm not entirely sure what the goal of that was. It does give them enough like full steam ahead momentum where Yup can kind of just into the backline. All right, pick up a triple kill as deadly on the Zenyatta as they are the Lucio. Toad attempting to kind of pull a sneaky play that we saw Optimal do earlier, but I don't even know if they're able to get out alive with this, are they?
Yeah, it looks like they
full commit.
should be able to. Yeah, their team's there. Oh, no.
Spike?
Spike.
What? I'm so confused with what's happening. We just went on a D.Va roller coaster throughout that whole time, but I mean, hey, both D.Vas managed to live, get back to their teams, and that team happened to have an ulting Sojourn on their side. Sound barrier from Gusty, and they don't really have any DPS. This is kind of just desperation, knowing that Alvernia are fighting on this doorstep. We might not even see another 2 minutes at the pace we're going, unless Optimal goes as it pulls a Fleta, swaps to Widow in the spawn, rips 2 heads off entirely, and wow, Iowa State Varsity, they are going to have to keep fighting this one through. Toad, the last one to contest the payload, has to be the Widowmaker to grapple on forwards. Optimal, it was a nice play. It gave us a little bit of a highlight from this map, but it is all Iowa State Varsity. This series, oh no, it's not going to be a sweep. Iowa State got something to say.
Yeah, and it really feels like they found their edge in the series, and it feels like when they get into a mirror with the Kiri Lucio specifically on a mid-level map like this, where it's not like super high ground focused or super close quarters, you know, where they just get enough space to be able to give their Sojourn, you know, Zinth to room to work with, but it's also, you know, close quarters to where, you know, the damage fall off isn't too bad for Sojourn, and they're able to really take advantage, because on Lijiang Tower, like we mentioned, they're playing Kiri Lucio into Juno Lucio. So when they got into this even fight between the Kiri and the Lucio, they were able to clean house.
But you know what the most important thing that Iowa State was able to do there? You denied
Genji's.
Set. You denied Optimal. Yep. Where were these DPS all game? Optimal got face checked. I'm pretty sure likely had a negative KD if it wasn't for those couple of Widowmaker picks towards the tail end there. So the fact that Iowa State Varsity were able to put as much pressure on those DPS as they did and weren't constantly getting flanked, it really does show that the adoption is there, that Iowa State potentially can drag this series out as long as it needs to go.
Yeah, Spike did such a good job on the D.Va on that map. It felt like every time Set was trying to go for a big play, the eat was just there, and they always had enough of it just to outlast any kind of situation or, you know, play they were trying to make. We do have map 4 in for Flashpoint. New Junk City is where we're going.
Yeah, you would say, I was like, oh, I wonder what Alvernia is going to pick. We get to see their first choice, what kind of comps they want to play, and then you get stuck with the least important map decision of the entire game, which is Flashpoint, because you got 2 options, and both of them play pretty similarly. You do choose the more brawl-oriented, you could argue, of the 2, so maybe we move away from the D.Va here. I don't think I've really ever seen D.Va played on this map, particularly in higher level Overwatch, so we might get our first look at a brand new composition.
I mean, we saw them on Lijiang Tower Gardens at first roll out on Junker Queen, so maybe they're looking to play Junker Queen on her home map. Obviously, Ramatra is still going to be ultra good. I've even seen teams play Zarya on this map, so I'm very curious to see what direction these teams are going to want to go. But it's doubtful that it's going to be D.Va.
Yeah, I highly doubt it. The one thing we do know, Alvernia Optimal in particular is kind of known for the Mei gameplay, I've come to hear. So playing something around that, if you're able to do it on Watchpoint Gibraltar of all maps, you could surely do it here on New Junk City. Maybe that Mauga Mei Venture kind of special from Set. I mean, I'm always let's get as much Venture gameplay out there as possible, and Set seems to be hearing the comms as of now. A little curious about this Junker Queen. It was a brief attempt on Lijiang Tower, but we're in a very different environment now, right?
Both teams are playing a brawl. Alvernia is going full out on Junker Queen compositions as Iowa State is looking to go with the Ramattra. The Ramattra is the composition we definitely have seen a lot more of recently. As you mentioned, you felt Junker Queen feels a little weak right now, but we're going to have to see. This is one of the few maps where I have seen Junker Queen work very well on.
It's definitely possible. I'm also interested in the support line. It's a Juno Kiriko, and unless there's like a Lucio hero ban, which there aren't any in this tournament, that's not something you see a ton, but I'm not going to hate on it until I see it. Problem is, Yup Yup is incredibly vulnerable, as we see how low their health bar is now, and the kind of name of the game is to close the gap, which hasn't exactly been done, and Zinth has gotten a couple of pickoffs here and there. You just don't have the speed to outpace this Junker Queen 3 Juno Lucio comp that it's just going to run at you permanently.
As we see Optimal, with the 2 players left on point, you're able to cap the point as now Lucio can go back and pick up its compatriots. As we see Otter already making a swap off of the Kiri, going over to the Ana, which I don't hate that because now you have the threat of the anti-nade with no cleanse available for the side of Alvernia.
And no, you don't really have a ton to really deal with it, so I think it can work, but my concern here is Otter can just get run down. Between the Junker Queen Shout, the Speed Ring, and Speed Amp, or just Gusty existing, you're not running away from this team. The nade is out, and it does force Toad back enough, so those are the kind of instances you have. If your nade lands, you gotta be able to focus a target, but again, you got a Set. You still have this Lucio and Junio with Set, who has no problem bursting down squishy heroes in small rooms.
And it really feels like you're going to have to whip out that rock collection, Tiny, because we're getting a lot of Venture. And it's not even just like, oh, they're playing Venture, da-da-da-da. No, they're playing Venture, baby. Like, they're making big-time plays and putting big-time pressure. That's going to be the first point cap for the side of Alvernia, as we'll now move on to the next point as they have responded well to dropping their second map of the season.
I know, that's a crazy thing to think about, too. Iowa State, one of 2 teams that was able to steal a map from Alvernia University Gold, and it seems that bouncing back from that hasn't been a problem so far. Is this like the first time that Iowa State will have ultimates? Kind of coming up. The amount of poke damage that Set has been able to do is kind of nutty. Again, checking this Venture on Flakes is much harder to do than that of a Genji or a Tracer. Set will be optimal to pull out the blade first. Iowa State Varsity were mid-rotation when they're completely ambushed by the Genji.
Yeah, and it's not even going to matter. Nice 1 ult easy cleanup for the side of Alvernia. And those are the kind of fights you want, as we already see Iowa State completely dropping their backline. They're going to abandon the ult percentage that they were gaining, Tiny, which is going to reset the ult economy back in the favor of Alvernia. And they're going to go to a Lucio Kiri.
It's great. I think that support comp in the long run will be better. The problem is Alvernia now have 2 support ultimates that are going to be nowhere near contested, and honestly, Ray, with how good Sound Barrier and Orbital Ray are, it can just win them the point outright. Set can run people down with the Tectonic Shock. Zinth gets knocked out of their own ultimate, and you didn't even need to use a support button there. This is just Alvernia winning off of Set, taking space.
Yeah, and that was a 1-for-1 trade. Zinth used the overclock in that fight in exchange for the Tectonic Shock. So you're just chilling if you're the side of Alvernia. You can look. Yes. What you need to do if you're Toad is force out the cleanse out of Otter, and then you can get a huge rampage. As they're just gonna get aggressive already with the Orbital Ray.
Yeah, this is starting to be an Alvernia classic, taking the fight in the spawn rooms. And there's the rampage on out. Otter was dead, so nothing really that could have been done about it. And Alvernia University Gold can deny a touch altogether. I love this aggressive sort of positioning. They're now on match point here for Flashpoint.
And because of how aggressive they played with Tiny, Iowa State responded with ultimates. So, despite how this fight is going, they're going to be able to re-engage onto this next point, and they will still have the only ultimate online right now, which will be that Gutsy Sound Barrier. And by the time some of these support ultimates come online for Iowa State, Optimal and Set will have gotten their DPS ultimates once again, as we see Spike going over to the Orisa now.
Yeah, this is kind of, we are going to bully Toad. We need to halt this tempo that Alvernia have just been full steam ahead so far. It's the one of few ways that Jungle Queen comp can work, is if you just go so fast that nobody can see you coming, and that's kind of what happens again there. Zinth got ambushed, and before anybody can get set up, the only one remaining is Spike, who just watched their team crumble around them.
Yeah, they had Optimal go to the point and just make sure it didn't get captured, and everyone else went on the flank and, as you mentioned, just caught Zinth totally off guard, and they didn't even have to use any kind of ult commit whatsoever. So you're basically giving Alvernia everything they could want. It's like, wait, we can win and capture this point without even having to commit our sound barrier? Okay, we'll take it.
And Alvernia are very good at siphoning their resources and identifying whether they actually need to use an ultimate or not. Something like Tectonic Shock, you kind of just pull it as soon as you get it, and that's what Set's going to do. Near frame, perfect to that point. Bolts into the back line, barely manages to burrow away, but you've already cracked open the door, and it doesn't take a whole lot of damage from Optimal and Toad to start getting these final blows cooking the kill feed.
Yeah, and the late staggers, Tiny, are absolutely devastating, because by the time this next fight is going to take place, you're going to be on final fight territory. The good thing for Iowa State is they're in the driver's seat ult economy-wise. They'll have 4 ultimates online, so we're going to have to see what they do with it, as a good job of being aggressive.
But here's the thing, Alvernia, they're not going to even let you get near the point. They're going to take that fight, force these ultimates before it happens. But Toggling and Gusty do get left in the dust themselves, so having all of that support ripped out from under them, it'll be Iowa State getting their first percentage of the map.
Yeah, big time plays coming out from Iowa State. They had the advantages. You use your blade and your sound barrier if you're Alvernia to force out the support ultimates of Iowa State, as Zinth has swapped over to Cassidy now. So that's another ult they're just, not going to have. So you have Blade and Terra Surge going up against Tectonic Shock, Rampage, and possibly an Orbital Ray. I feel like your win condition at this point, if you're Alvernia, because you only got to win one more fight, is that Orbital Ray.
The Orbital Ray, Rampage, you have options. I would say Varsity, though, they need to be the ones to act first. You cannot let Toad just go in and run people down like they've been allowed to do all game long. Taking initiative out of that Terra Surge gets both supports out of the picture. They are very squishy, little sustain. For Alvernia University Gold, Iowa State know that fully well.
Yeah, and with that, I think that's going to be the first point capture for the side of Iowa State. No one's going to be able to touch for the side of Alvernia, as they're going to look to totally respawn to the next point, which the 2 left are Bomb Flats and Junkyard. So, looks like the next point looked like it was Junkyard.
Yes, that seems to be where teams are heading. I'm not entirely sure. We're taking, yes, we're in Junkyard.
Oh, no, looks like it's Bomb.
This is
it is Junkyard. I was right. Yeah.
And it's like another blue and orange metal wall. Like, that could be like 10 different places in this map. Let's be real with ourselves.
Poyo's still going to have a blade to work with, but Alvernia definitely going to have the decisive edge in ult economy.
Yeah, especially with Set just kind of opting to pull this in. It was a good pre-active Suzu out of Otter. Unfortunately, just didn't hit the people that needed it for the ult, and Set had already sent the rest of the team 6 feet under. The advantage of having a drilling expert on your team, I guess.
Yeah, but you did give it one, extra ult. Alvernia used the Rampage in that fight, so able to clean it up with that, as they're going to have to defend with an Orbital Ray versus a Kitsune Rush and a High Noon from the side of Iowa State. But they have looked a lot better with this Orisa. It's able to let them withstand and bully and sustain in this fight.
Yeah, it does help a little bit more, and even having the poke, Toggling and Gusty don't have a ton of healing output between the 2 of them, but what they do have is really, really strong ultimates. Zinth had to pull that Deadeye there to completely zone the team and also take out the only side of the support. So if Alvernia do not win this fight right here and right now, it is very much looking like Iowa Varsity can get this switch around, but again, they're not sticking to Spike. Set is tearing this team apart from behind with Optimal. These 2 DPS have been on the flank. They've been unchecked, and it's just like a throwback to the maps 1 and 2 that have been won. To Iowa State, can they get another touch?
Yeah, and that was a big ult dump from Iowa State. Spike having to swap over to the Wrecking Ball now to get the touch. Optimal's going to have the Blade. Yup will have the sound barrier to respond, however, but Set's gone down.
And the touch is completely denied again. Alberta University Gold pulling their classic move, fight ahead of the objective, and it will win them now their third map here, Ray. Championship point for the team that has been darn near perfect the entire NECC season.
Yeah, as we talked about, Esperança was their second map, only dropped all season long, so it is a rarity for this team, but Iowa State has pushed them to their edge specifically. We're going to have to see if they can do it once again and come back in the series, because championship point on the line now for Alvernia University Gold.
I think this map for Iowa State Varsity is particularly challenging. It lends itself so well to Set and Optimal, their particular play style, kind of working alongside Gutsy to set up on these off angles that you're not prepared for. And not to mention, I think the ultimate economy, up until like the end, that last fight on that third point there, was completely thrown off because of the staggered swaps that Iowa State Varsity made. So there wasn't really even many good fights that they managed to take. We gotta see, Ray, is this something that Iowa State can do? Manage to hand Alvernia their first loss of the season, or are we going to see Alvernia remain perfect, remain undefeated, and walk away with the Division III title? That is what we are going to find out just after this quick break.
What do you make of this up here? Just showed up in the yard a couple days ago.
Dog been digging in there?
I don't think so, dude. That goes way down in there. Seriously, did you just lose your meat stick?
Yeah.
Oh, no. There's something in there, dude. Just leave it.
Are you kidding me?
We'll just head to us. Just leave it.
The hell with that.
Oh, yeah, there's something in there.
Want one?
Thank you.
It was worth it.
We are yet to crown our Overwatch Division 3 West Central Finals champion, but we will certainly be doing so in one of the next 3 maps, because we are 4 maps in to our best of 4 series. Iowa State, they managed to get Esperança before our break, but when we got to New Junk City, it was all the Wolves' territory. And Ray, now we really have to question, with how predominantly it was an Alvernia map, is this something that we can see Iowa State find some sort of miracle run like they did in Esperança again?
It's going to be the big question, as it's all going to come down for Iowa State to this map pick. And it's a map we have not seen in a very long time. Tiny.
What?
We're going to New Bonnie, baby.
What? Why? Why would you want to go to New Bonnie? In the nicest way. Oh, they banned Kings Row. Okay, that's why you want to go to New Bonnie. You're like, all right, if we can't have fun, you're not going to have fun. Okay, in all realistics, sure, New Bonnie, yeah, nobody likes that map. But at the same time, this is actually a really good choice if you wanted to keep running that Diva. Scythe has actually done a lot better on the Sojourn in the past couple of maps here. So for Iowa State Varsity, it does make sense, just given the direction that the series has taken so far. But is it the map that is going to set them up for winning another 3 maps in a row? Because as we said before, Alvernia University, they're on championship point.
Gonna be the big question. And the one time we did see Iowa State taking advantage, it was in the Diva Genji with the Kiri Lucio. And that's not the compositions you're going to see in a map like this. Yes, you could see Diva, but you're not going to see Kiri Lucio. It's going to be a lot more defensive of a backline setup. As I say that, though,
Juno again?
as I say that, on this defense, they're going Juno Kiri, which didn't give them great success on a map like New Junk City, yet they think they can come here on a New Bonnie and have the same kind of success. It feels like this is, once again, more of a map where you play more defensive with like a, Brig Ana kind of situation.
Brig Ana, but even, Juno is so vulnerable to dives unless you have somebody to help her out, and I don't think Kiriko is the greatest hero to do it. We saw it a little bit back on New Junk City, and perhaps the change of environment's a little bit harder to contest will make it the answer. Alvernia University Gold are giving us a different look at the DPS comp, though, set on the Ash for the first time, and Optimal returning to this May that we got a peek at more in Watchpoint Gibraltar, so kind of looking to both isolate players here and kind of use this wall as a way to get around the rest of this map. But here's the guy I was talking about. Yup is incredibly vulnerable to dives. It was a kunai from toggling that ended up doing the final bit of damage. I don't think that support comp is necessarily it for Iowa State Varsity. Is Alvernia do what they do best, divide and conquer.
Yeah, I think divide and conquer was the exact words that were in my head as well. They all just kind of take their own mini fights and they're able to make it work so well. We saw Toad go after Yup immediately, and it was a great kunai follow-up from toggling as well. So their teamwork just seems to be on point. They capture first point with relative ease, as now they're looking to gain some distance on the second point, with Toad already applying a bunch of pressure on this high ground. And
this is a good spot. Denying Zinth any form of space is very important. If there's one player from Iowa State who's really stepped it up, it would be this Ash, and kind of dueling it out with the Diva eventually will relent in that particular battle. Since there wasn't any support sightline there, they'll be toggling again with the first final blow of the fight. Don't see that a whole lot from Kiriko players, but toggling proving to be different. Wins the races at the Kitsune rush here, and will go ahead and pop it in an advantage. Otter forced to teleport away early and will be punished accordingly by an icicle out of Optimal. High ground again, completely cleared out. Yup, ooh, narrowly hanging on to life.
Yeah, it's going to be able to get that health pack as well, so it will get out. But the ultimates are now, staggering for the side of Alvernia. A Blizzard, a Bob, a Remech, and they're getting close to a sound barrier.
There's options here if you're Iowa State, but this Bob is just so oppressive. You can't get a touch. Even with the Kitsune rush here, having an auto-aim pilot kind of going out. I mean, that's 3 final blows, I think, for the Bob throughout that whole skirmish. That's 5 minutes, 45 seconds, right? For just this third point. Iowa State got to find a way to hit the brakes like they did at Gibraltar.
Yeah, absolutely staggering. You will get the orbital ray for Iowa State, so that should help them stabilize a little bit, but it is also predicated on Optimal, not getting a lot of value out of this Blizzard either. So tough fights from both sides.
Yeah, I mean, Alvernia, this is looking pretty good for them here. If Optimal can manage to weasel the Blizzard past Spike's defense matrix, and even if you use it to just zone out Yup's orbital ray here, there's several options that you can take, and either one, I feel like Alvernia can win this trade of ultimates. It's only a matter of when they decide to actually hit that go button. You can see how much Toad is getting chunked down from the amount of poke. Overwatch ends up committing the wall to completely deny Zinth and Poyo's sightlines temporarily, and hopefully kite out with your orbital ray. That may, well, while it had good potential, it left just enough gap for everyone to squeak through. And this is what Alvernia were waiting for. Iowa State to burn all of their cooldowns down, re-engage with tools of their own. Gets 2-in-8 rush, not something you can escape between the accelerated cooldowns and the speed of the players running at full force.
Everyone's going to back out as Zenith used the overclock. It goes down. What an absolutely terrible situation to be in as they're already approaching the end.
I don't think this is realistically contestable. I mean, between the sound barrier, the Blizzard is zoned it out. Toad can even just plop a tactical nuke on the payload if they wanted to. There's just not much of an option here. Gussie is in a dangerous spot that may well had potential, but they gain time, right? That is how quickly the Numbani run was, and you know, we kind of jokingly complain about this map, but I wonder if this is where Alvernia wanted us to go all along.
Okay, I kid you not, Tiny. In all of my years of casting, obviously Numbani is, not the most popular map, so we don't get to go to it a lot. But I don't think I've ever seen a team gain time on this map before.
That's actually crazy. It's like, this map in particular, there's just so many spots that you can get stuck at. First and third point, especially. There's so many of these chokes, and just trying to move through these like small hallways with explosiveness, it's not possible, yet Alvernia managed to do it.
It's quite a statement from Alvernia. Championship point on the line, comes out like that. They're like, we are winning this right here and now. Iowa State must respond.
Yeah, this is a high bar that has been set. So you say, oh, maybe you could just like jump and reach for it. Nah, you need a whole jetpack at this point if you're Iowa State varsity, and you're looking at this attack. What can you do to dislodge set? Optimal's going to be looking to isolate these players or just continue to deny sightlines, and I think making the swap in this part line, Yup and Otter back to that Lucio Kiriko that is much more consistent. Spike teasing the Winston here has some potential. The bubble placement was great the few times we've seen it come out in the past, but what can he manage to do to avoid getting burned down early on these fights? Because Alvernia, as we know, they like to divide their players up and blow up a target.
Then we get the Rock Muncher coming out once again.
Woo!
Poyo on the venture. Takes a lot of pressure, has to back out a little bit there, but looking to try and dive with the Winston here and set up some big-time damage.
I like this. Okay, Poyo, you're cooking. I see ya. You take the set down there onto set. And Venture is a really underrated dive hero, in my opinion. And so seeing them get to be used like that is awesome. However, Iowa State varsity are not up in the trade economy. I believe they are down 4-2, 4-3 now. But Poyo has certainly managed to keep this time alive. It's previously we've seen Set kind of dominate on the Venture hero, and now it's Poyo showing that, hey, I like rocks too.
Yeah, and that's just, kind of how it goes. Set, very vulnerable. It's not, a Lucio Kiri's not going to really be able to protect and help you up on that high ground. So they're able to dive on a Set who's now going to swap over to the Sojourn immediately. But Spike going down early is not a great look for Iowa State, as Alvernia can probably take this corner now.
Yeah, they can kind of just chill at this corner. I don't think a spawn hold is necessarily a good idea, given this composition. You want to make sure it's Set and kind of sit on that little balcony, but instead, no, they are going to go play more towards kind of that overpass area. I am curious, though, how these Kitsune rushes will be used. Toggling an Otter, using them in essentially the same second there, and Spike pops like a balloon. Something that's pretty common with a Winston into a Diva if you're not able to zone her out properly. And I do wonder if we are going to see a swap in the tank department.
A trade for Alvernia, so you're going to continue to take that as more time's just going to tick off of the clock. And I like this pressure and this positioning that Alvernia is continuing to take. Being able to hold high ground like this without completely spawn holding either, and the Diva has the opportunity to get out of dodge if needed.
Oh, this is two massive picks that are just realistically to poke damage. At least that was the case for Poyo. And no ultimates even needing to be used there either. Like, this is an opportunity for Iowa State just to take a step back and take a deep breath to get themselves recentered and refocused. Oh!
Also, I'm available for Zenith, but the recall's already forced with the amount of pressure they were under.
Well, they definitely thought about it, but between the Suzu and the TP, what kind of gymnastics did I just watch? Sid triple blink pulse bombs, 180s on Sid's head. Beautiful play from Iowa State's varsity's player, and unfortunately, I don't even know if that's going to be enough. The sound barrier out of Gusty, knowing Yup Yup isn't around to spawn. That's a second move now off the map. That's Gusty's clip. Spike sending 2 of their own. It's really over. Is it cliff diving day and I was just not aware of it? My goodness. I mean, the trades here definitely favor Iowa State varsity, so at the end of the day, they'll get the build progress they want.
Yeah, but they're finally now just getting rolling after, 2 minutes wasted for the side of Alvernia. So they did a great job of wasting a ton of time and got out a bunch of ultimates for Iowa State. That was 3 ults used in that fight. So you'll take that. And Optimal gets a pick on Otter. That's bad.
I think that's the player you want to die the least right now. I mean, I would say you kind of have to pop the sound barrier there. Otter's all the sustain that you kind of had. It was a complete wraparound out of Alvernia, and trying to bait them with the Blizzard, while it doesn't really catch anybody, it forces them to fight towards the small room where Toad can kind of set up and burst these people down alongside Optimal. Wonderful little trick play that Alvernia pulled.
Exactly. I was going to say, with Blizzard, you don't always have to catch someone, but you can force them to take certain pathing or positioning to put yourselves in an advantageous position. And that's exactly what Optimal was able to do there. And now Set's probably going to look to do the same. You don't have to necessarily get the kills with the overclock, but if you can force positioning and get kills with the rest of your team, that's A-okay too.
We'll have to see though, because again, the amount of poke damage is being taken and it's been rather rough, and it's only going to hurt a little more if Set has the overclock online. Spike again, just going down. Can't manage to stay alive under the pressure of Toad and Set combined. Does force self-destruct down at the very least, but I honestly would love to see Spike go back and mirror this Diva, given how much better it looked previously.
Yeah, and late staggers on the back line for Iowa State. Going to be even more time drained off the clock because we're already under 2 minutes and they've yet to round the second corner on second point. Zenith once again has a pulse bomb. We saw what they did with it last time. Can they make magic happen once again?
It's not a ton of time left, so some sort of crazy play here from Zinth would certainly be appreciated from the Iowa State varsity roster. And it's just not something that's easy to do, but no, they're going to go for it again. Spot set on the high ground, but this time keeps the pulse bomb in his back pocket. Saw that the Kiriko was standing right next to the Sojourn. You know what? Not worth getting Suzu'd. So this time, we'll be looking more towards that Lucio in the back line. Uh-oh, Gusty's in trouble. The sound barrier not going to come out. Poyo emerges from the burrow at just the perfect time here. But Alvernia, they have the greater sustain. Otter being that target priority there means that there's no way for Spike to continue living without a primal rage. We're down to the final minute, and it looks like Alvernia might have a hold going.
Yeah, but getting Optimal is actually pretty good because, it's going to take a while for a slow May to get back. I mean, you could send Gusty, but that's going to put you in a 3v5 situation where your entire team's going to have to back up. Yeah, they're not even going to look to go get the May. So you're going to be in a 4v5 for a while, but when they get back, you will have the Blizzard available. So I feel like if you're Iowa State, speed is the name of the game.
And well, they certainly have that. And finally, the ultimates to back it up. And you gotta be flawless from here on out. And that is not the way you want it to go. Optimal finds Otter's head now for the second fight in a row. No healing available. Spike and Yup Yup have to be perfect with the execution of their tools from here on out. Poyo preventing Blizzard follow-up, at least for the time being. The tectonic shock zones out players, yeah, but where's the follow-up? Where is the rest of the elimination power? Zet is on a mission of their own, chasing a Winston through the backline to the spawn. Spike doesn't have Primal Rage, used it just to displace the Sojourn. He doesn't have any team to help back it up. It's all Toad, uncontested. A true titan for this team. Alvernia University Gold. They're looking clean to take away their Division 3 championship. It's only Zit that remains. Pulse bomb stuck onto Sect, and this pesky Lucio from Yup Yup and Synth, they have to tag in and out to be perfect, but now it's only up to Zint the Tracer, the last one standing, and it'll be Alvernia University Gold taking the West Central Division 3 title.
What a series from Alvernia. I mean, give it up to Iowa State for being able to take the second only map off of them all season long, but Alvernia was the number 2 seed, number 1 coming out of their West Division, and they proved it today with a dominating effort.
and it was absolutely worth it starting to lose my voice for. My goodness, an exciting series to watch from the very beginning. And you know, you see this kind of first fight and you think back like, wow, Iowa State University, they got the ball comp, they got the boots, they got everything, and from that point on, it was set, it was optimal, and Toad especially, that were just controlling the space beyond anybody's business. And it was incredible to watch through and through, having a flawless season, only dropping, what, 2 maps in total, Ray? I think there's very few teams that can say that they did this.
Yeah, and again, Alvernia always made a good, you know, job of swapping and changing things around to counter what Iowa State was doing. The only blurb we saw was Esperança, and, you know, I just think Iowa State was clicking on all cylinders that map, and then Alvernia was able to take him to New Junk City, take him to more of a brawl map, and really take him to their paces. And once it was 3-1, I think Iowa, all the sails they had in the wind were just completely gone.
Yeah, you could really see that momentum swap where Iowa State were questioning, you know, can we change this? Will it work? Can we change this? And you ended up changing like 5 different things. Our composition suddenly doesn't work together very well. Alvernia showed us that they have an excellent understanding of when and how to take fights, how to dominate the pace of the game. And you have to say, they did that all the way until the very end. Of course, the heroic plays along the way were wonderful, but the sheer amount of initiative that Alvernia had taken, you can see why this team has remained undefeated throughout the entire spring season.
And as you can see, this is how it went today. Alvernia absolutely went on a tear, winning the series 4-1 and taking the West Central Playoffs title.
Yeah, very big deal. Yeah, very big deal for this team, and I really hope that they take the time to celebrate it. Alvernia has been a team that I know a lot of casters and other people in the Overwatch community have been keeping tabs on, you know, being on the rise and handing out losses to other squads that have been kind of looking up, and you gotta imagine that going ahead, that Alvernia University Gold will continue along this rising path, and perhaps we can see them perform even more when it comes to nationals, as they have secured their own spot in their online tournament.
Couldn't agree with you more, and I think eventually we may be able to see this team rise up and even be in Division 2 in the future. So congratulations to Alvernia University Gold on winning the Division 3 West Central Playoffs Championship. For us, we are going to go on a bit of a 30-minute break before the next game because, folks, we got the D1 Grand Finals, Winthrop versus Northwood. It's going to be a great one. We'll see you back in 30 minutes.
Oh man, this is incredible.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Hey man, grab me a meat stick. I think I can reach it if I just a little more. Just let me go a little. I can't. Just a little more. I almost got it. Careful! Oh God! No, come on, just reach. Reach. Just grab my hand. Grab my hand.
Give me the meat stick. This other hand's closer. The one with the stick is... Oh!
matchup that has been long awaited here in NECC. The best of the best are going to head it off for our Division 1 Overwatch Finals. One team guaranteed a spot at LAN at Nationals, and the other have to be happy in second, working their way through the LCQ. We have Winthrop, we have Northwood, two of the best to do it, Ray. I cannot wait to see what goes down today.
Yeah, so let's, while we're talking about it, go ahead and pull up the bracket of how the teams got here, as Winthrop has been on the road, less traveled, absolutely dominating everyone in a 3-0 fashion, including Northwood in the winners finals, who ended up sending them down to lower finals, as Northwood in the losers finals with last night was in a slugfest against UCI Esports, ended up winning 3-2 to come back to the grand finals to challenge Winthrop once again.
Yeah, these two teams, while they haven't seen each other in face-to-face so far, Northwood and Winthrop have some striking similarities. If you look at their journey throughout the bracket, the only time that they did end up meeting, of course, was in the back part of this side where you had to fight through those lower bracket. But in the regular season, Ray, same record, 7-0, undefeated. Each team dropped 3 maps. I think that's kind of crazy to look at just across this point, and it shows the true stacked talent that we have in the Division 1 for NECC Overwatch. You do, of course, have to give that upper hand to Winthrop. They've hit those higher highs. They've had this team longer. In fact, they have several players actually on both teams right now that are currently out of the country, halfway across the world in Korea, preparing for the Soup Cup tournament and playing in OWCS International in Hangzhou just next week.
Yeah, we also have to keep in mind, you're definitely going to be favoring Winthrop in this series. We're taking a look at their rosters. Winthrop, in Collegiate, there's always been this telltale when it comes to Overwatch that it's Winthrop and ISU who have been trading blows, the last couple of years. Where, ISU, last year swept everything, and this year Winthrop's kind of taking the slight edge on them. We'll see how it goes as we're coming up to LAN season. And then there's been a tier break, and then Northwood is at the top of that next tier break. So the question is, can Northwood close the gap on this tier break and try and punch their way up and win and punch their ticket and not have to go through LCQ, which, keep in mind, is on Monday and Tuesday, so it is just around the corner.
Yeah, this is a big deal for both of these teams, is whether it's punching up or solidifying your spot at the top. And, I brought it up a little bit before that the situation is a little bit different around this game. CJ, Zera, and Ultraviolet are all currently in South Korea playing at a PC cafe. I heard they only have 2 hours at the PC cafe. That is all that they paid for. So they kind of want to get this game done and over with as fast as they can. But Ray, if we do get a sweep here today, I'm going to be pretty surprised given the caliber that both of these teams have proven to punch up to.
I mean, you can say that, but Winthrop did sweep them the last time, so you never know what's going to happen. We'll have to see how the ping is going to affect things. Lijiang Tower is going to be our first map. And the other thing to keep in mind, Tiny, is for both of these teams who have players in Korea and soon to be China, with LCQ being on Monday and Tuesday, that's also going to put a damper on things on whoever has to play through that, because they're going to have to come to PC cafes and figure that out, or they're going to be playing at disadvantages against the rest of the teams trying to qualify for the other 2 spots in the NECC LAN happening in San Antonio on May 10th.
Yeah, there's a lot riding on just one particular match, and the stipulations in both the theoreticals or the less tangible things of just the glory of it all, and of course qualifying for these types of LAN events. And we get to look ahead here. Lijiang Tower was the first selection, not the original one that was out there. A bit of an early giveaway of that. So no Helios for Winthrop. They're going to be on Lijiang Tower. It's going to be Brawl v Brawl to kick us off.
As we're going to see the Orisa going up against the Ramatra, as Zera and Rocket are going to be taking the Genji duels. The question is, how much will this ping affect Zera?
Yeah, Tracer and Genji, the 2 heroes he's known the most for, are probably some of the worst heroes to have to play in a high ping situation, but if anybody can do it, it's the best Genji and Tracer in NA at this moment. Rocket's certainly up there when it comes to those categories, particularly in the Tracer, but for now, he'll be more towards his Genji. Spot's infected off on an island. I'm really surprised that that wasn't communicated to the rest of the team. Rocket identified the isolation, and it'll be Northwood at the first cap.
as Northwood already looking really good. Rocket playing extremely well on this Genji right out of the gate, is infected already, going to be swept.
I love this.
Yeah, the chat's gonna be awesome today. So keep an eye on that team chat, the match chat in the corner, folks. It's gonna be funny.
Yeah, nice thing about these players is they are all friends. Some of them even compete on the same OWCS teams, but today they are on the opposite sides of the field, and Rocket has been the one to tear it up in the kill feed. The second elimination again in these fights, but that little skirmish on the side doesn't matter nearly as much as what Infected and rest of Winthrop are doing more toward the center of the objective. Icy, not much help left to spare here, and has been hanging on to dear life thanks to the amount of support CJ have been chunking into a beautiful snipe out of Infected. My goodness.
This is the Winthrop we know and love. They match up well in the Orisa duel. I mean, Infected, very well known for being a great Orisa player. And now both teams coming up with a lot of ults. The only one who's lagging behind a little bit is Sam on the Cassidy.
The Cassidy, though, the Deadeye, the least of your worries. It's one of these orbital ranks that I kind of want to see. CJ and Ultraviolet both have them up, and they're both going to come out at the same time. Infected, though, has this Terror Surge a little bit before Icy pops it out, grabs onto 4, and slams it down onto 2. Winthrop ready to follow up on their tank player, helping lead the way.
And they're able to get Icy just before they get the pick onto Infected. It was a 3 ult fight in exchange for 2 ults, so not the worst in the world if you're Winthrop. You'll have the rack attack is going to be relied heavily upon this next fight for this sound barrier, because you got to have it on the ready for both of these incoming DPS ultimates or Northwood.
Yeah, a little bit of an overcommitment, perhaps, with the Dragon Blade last fight, but it now just all eyes turn to Rack Attack. Can he defend against Rocket and Haven? Rocket in particular known to pop off when it comes to the Genji's ultimate with the sound barrier at his back. Anything is possible. Look at how many swings he just took, and Sam Chovy's alone. He'll be taken out of the fight, and the main target of this Genji so far. A couple of swaps back and forth, no DPS though, up and available for Winthrop. They're just going to try to sustain themselves on this objective, keep that percentage upticking, and if anything, force Northwood to use even more of their resources. The only thing that hasn't come out is Haven's overclock, but with how long it's taking them to deal with Infected, it might need to happen. The support from Rack Attack and Ultraviolet has been great. It's only now that Icy hasn't fully isolated, and even at that point, the reinforcements have arrived. Zera and Senchovis are fully back on their feet, ready to dish out even more of this damage. Couple more shots to go ahead and do it, and it's looking like a Winthrop capture point for here on Control Center. Nice couple of cleanup kills, and it seems the ping isn't affecting them after all.
It seems like Haven held on to that overclock for just far too long. I understand wanting to hold on to it and save it for the next fight, but you weren't able to clean up fast enough, and then you go down with it in your back pocket. And when you just see a round ending like that, Tiny, when we were calling out the overclock, and to still see that blue check mark sitting there, it just feels like a huge missed opportunity for Northwood.
And like, I can understand it too, like with how much percentage they had left, it looks like a winnable fight. And honestly, the fact that Northwood couldn't clean up that fight faster was ridiculous. Ultraviolet and Rack Attack were there, fully there for Infected. They had to commit so much.
Yeah, Infected lived way too long.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more. Like, that was ridiculous how long Infected was on that point. As we're going to see no changes really from either team. We're still going to see the Lucio Junos with the Orisa, Cassidy, Genjis.
Ooh.
So, again, Haven already taking a lot of damage out the rip.
I think it's actually a headshot there, or not a headshot, a javelin from Infected that ended up doing it. Northwood with the first bit of space towards this objective. It makes it a little bit more tricky to pass over this point, and I mean, Rocket just kind of full sense it. That's half of playing Genji is confidence, and he certainly seems to have that at his side so far today. Sam Chovy's been the chosen punching bag for Northwood for the fights that they have managed to win, and the follow-up remains consistent here as Northwood significantly up when it comes to that player advantage, and it's only now the couple of shurikens to Rocket's head though. Is this really that much more contestable?
I mean, with Rocket going down, with players coming back, it's now going to be contestable as long as everyone's able to get out, and they are.
They're able to fully regroup, and you kind of need Infected back to at least negate Icy to some sort of degree. But again, there's Sam Chovy's dead again. I believe there was a boop from left off of the bridge too. It's kind of crazy. They're just not letting this Cassidy get any value through these fights. Winthrop, gotta get a reset.
Yeah, on a map like this, where you're gonna have a little bit more angles to work with, especially if you're Haven, this Sojourn's gonna be a lot more stronger. Sam just hasn't been able to have any kind of space to work with at all on this casting. They're just applying so much pressure to him. Winthrop can use these support ultimates though.
Well, be coming out from both teams here. The sound barriers will likely shortly follow, but it's Icy instead. With a little health bar means that Lep has to pull the trigger a little bit earlier. Well, the Terra Surge out of Icy, we saw Infected pull the combo out earlier, and it doesn't seem that Northwood have that same type of capacity to do so. It does force the positioning, though, and taking care of Infected, there's no tanks to continue this fight any longer, but they're still going to end up committing the Dragon Blade. Zera is going for it. Rack Attack gets the boop off onto Lep. Even Rocket wants to match the Genji ultimate on the other end. A chaotic fight, to say the least, and you do have to question why Winthrop kept investing.
Yeah, very surprised there. I mean, they will be able to re-engage and have both their High Noon and their Terra Surge to go up against Haven's Overclock, but, you know, with the percentage mounting, Winthrop have to find an answer quickly or we're going to a sub-map 3.
This Terra Surge is very helpful for not only taking and maintaining space, but also setting up damage combos. Chovy, using the Deadeye more as a zoning tool, forces the commit and the deflex out of Rocket, so he'll be out of commission for the time being, or actually for much longer, thanks to Zera slicing straight through the opposing Genji, trades it out for his own life, and we're yet to see this Terra Surge come to fruition, and perhaps Winthrop don't even need it. Rack Attack is the Lucio dip, and that's pretty much all you need to know about that fight.
Yeah, but 99% in counting for the side of Northwood Blue, so all they have to do is take one more singular fight, as they will have an incoming orbital ray. But as you mentioned, Infected was able to hold on to this Terra Surge, so they're going to still have that tool of engagement. So it might, you know, they might not have to commit as many support ultimates to this fight because they have the Terra Surge and could find an early pick with it.
You might be able to, but it's kind of how you can contest it. We're back up to the point where the support ultimates are online. The only thing that Northwood doesn't have is a matching sound barrier. It's likely due to the